Canada and the United States share something remarkable. It is the world's longest undefended border. For centuries, this border has been more than a line on a map. It has been a symbol of peace. It has represented deep cooperation. People, ideas, and goods have flowed freely across it. This flow built a unique relationship. Few nations can claim such a close and amicable history. This history is not just about treaties, it is about shared experiences. It is about families with members on both sides. It is about a deeply intertwined cultural landscape shaped by proximity and mutual influence. The economic ties between these two North American giants are vast. They are complex. Before recent trade disputes, they formed one of the largest trading relationships globally. Canadian resources fueled American industries. American products found a ready market in Canada. This interdependence was a cornerstone of prosperity for both. Beyond economics, there are shared values. Both nations champion democracy. Both advocate for human rights on the world stage. This long-standing harmony made recent events all the more jarring. The year the tariffs hit, a tremor went through Canadian industry. The United States, citing national security concerns, imposed significant tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Canada, a close ally and key supplier, was not exempt. The shock was immediate. Canadian steel producers, who had long operated within an integrated North American market, faced a sudden wall. Their products became more expensive overnight. This threatened jobs. It threatened the viability of plants that had operated for generations, forming the backbone of many communities. The initial impact was felt directly in the steel sector. Orders were questioned, future investments were put on hold, workers faced uncertainty. But the effects did not stop there. Steel is a fundamental building block. It is crucial for manufacturing, for construction, for infrastructure. Canadian industries that relied on steel, from auto parts makers to construction firms, faced rising costs. This made them less competitive. The tariffs created a ripple effect. It spread outwards, touching various parts of the Canadian economy. National sentiment in Canada shifted perceptibly. There was disbelief, there was anger. The national security justification felt particularly insulting to many Canadians. In this challenging environment, Prime Minister Mark Carney stepped forward. He articulated a clear strategy for Canada. The core of this strategy was diversification. Canada, he argued, had become too reliant on a single trading partner. The U.S. tariffs were a painful lesson. They highlighted a vulnerability. To ensure long-term economic stability, Canada needed to look beyond its southern border. It needed to forge new partnerships. It needed to open new markets for Canadian goods and services across the globe. This was not just a reaction, but a proactive reshaping of Canada's economic future. Prime Minister Carney's government actively pursued this diversification. They championed existing trade agreements like the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, with the European Union. They pushed for the full implementation of the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTP. These agreements offered Canadian businesses preferential access to vast new markets. Beyond these, diplomatic efforts were intensified. Trade missions were sent to fast-growing economies in Asia, South America, and Africa. The message was clear. Canada is open for business and it is looking for new partners. The strategy was not without its challenges. Building new trade relationships takes time. The U.S. steel tariffs were not a one-way street. They did not just affect Canada, they also sent ripples back into the American economy. Many U.S. industries rely on Canadian steel. It is often specialized. It is integrated into complex North American supply chains. Think of the auto industry. Parts and components cross the border multiple times before a final vehicle is assembled. Tariffs on Canadian steel meant higher input costs for American manufacturers. These costs would either be absorbed, reducing profits, or passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices. The concept of integrated supply chains is crucial here. For decades, businesses in Canada and the U.S. built these intricate networks. They were designed for efficiency. They were designed for cost-effectiveness. The tariffs disrupted this delicate balance. Suddenly, a component that was affordable yesterday became more expensive today. This forced American companies to scramble. Some sought alternative suppliers domestically. Others found that Canadian steel, even with the tariff, was still necessary due to quality or specific grades not readily available elsewhere. The broader implications for the North American economy were significant. Uncertainty became a dominant theme. Businesses hesitate to invest when trade rules are in flux. The tariffs created an environment of unpredictability. Amidst these trade tensions, another complex issue emerged. The Trump administration proposed that Canada should fully join the U.S. Ballistic Missile Defense, or BMD system. This was not an entirely new idea. Canada had debated participation in BMD in the past. But the timing of this renewed push was significant. It came when the economic relationship was under strain. It raised questions about whether this was a genuine security concern or a point of leverage in other negotiations. Canada had long cooperated with the U.S. on continental defense through NORAD, but BMD was a step further. The reception in Canada to this proposal was mixed. It was cautious. Some argued that joining BMD was a logical extension of Canada's defense partnership with the U.S. They believed it would enhance North American security. They pointed to evolving global threats. Others were skeptical. They worried about the cost. They questioned the effectiveness of the technology. There were also concerns about sovereignty. Would joining BMD cede too much control over Canadian defense policy to Washington? Would it draw Canada into U.S. foreign policy entanglements it might otherwise avoid? Prime Minister Mark Carney's government approached the issue with deliberation. They initiated a thorough review. Canada's response to the shifting trade landscape under Prime Minister Carney was multifaceted. It was not just about reacting to U.S. policies. It was about proactively shaping Canada's economic destiny. This involved a two-pronged approach. First, strengthening economic ties with the rest of the world. Second, strengthening economic ties within Canada itself. The goal was to build a more resilient and self-reliant economy. The push for new international trade agreements was key. CETA and CPTPP were central. Canada sought to modernize existing agreements. It explored new sectoral agreements. It aimed to position itself as a reliable trading partner. This involved significant diplomatic outreach. It also required Canadian businesses to become more globally minded. The government provided support for export development. It helped companies identify new opportunities in emerging markets. Internally, there was a renewed focus on breaking down interprovincial trade barriers. For too long, trade within Canada had faced unnecessary hurdles. Different regulations and standards between provinces sometimes made it easier to trade with another country than with a neighboring province. Prime Minister Carney's government worked with provincial leaders to harmonize rules. The period marked by U.S. steel tariffs has been defining for Canada. It tested the nation's resilience. It challenged long-held assumptions about its most important international relationship. Yet Canada has demonstrated a remarkable capacity to adapt. The country has historically shown an ability to weather storms. Under leaders like Prime Minister Mark Carney, Canada showcased a quiet strength. The determination to emerge as a strong, independent global voice has been key. Canada has actively sought to broaden its horizons. This is not about diminishing one partnership, it is about building many. Creating a network of relationships enhances Canada's influence and economic security. The diversification strategy is a testament to this ambition. It reflects a mature understanding of Canada's place in a complex, multipolar world. Canada's efforts to strengthen internal trade also speak to a deeper understanding of national strength. A more unified domestic market fosters innovation. It makes the entire Canadian economy more robust. This internal cohesion is a crucial foundation for projecting strength externally. By addressing these internal barriers, Canada is reinforcing the very fabric of the Confederation. This inward focus better equips the nation to engage confidently with the world at large.